Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss week 16 of 2023. Let's get going. Well, week 16 was certainly different than the weeks that came before it. It was kind of cool, it was relatively wet, so we didn't have to water the gardens much. But the real difference was the nighttime temperatures. They were getting down into the low 40s. In fact, towards the end of this week and early into week 17, it's going to get into the upper 30s. For us, what that means is that we're just simply not going to plant any of our nightshades. It's looking like right now, we may not even plant nightshades until the second week of May. Now, sometimes, last year is a good example. We were able to plant our nightshades in the middle of April, and they did really well. We didn't have any cold temperatures. In fact, in the beginning of May, the feels-like temperature was already in triple digits. So last year was sort of an outlier. This year, it's looking like the end of April is a lot cooler than normal and a lot cooler than the last couple years. So with all that being said, let's go talk to Lesh real fast and look at her new chickens.
Hey y'all, we just wanted to talk about our project for the week. We had 2 broody hens, so we thought we would let them sit on some eggs. We started out with 12, 1 cracked, so we have 11, but we had 7 chicks hatch. They started pipping last Thursday, and we got a few more that are 4 legs left that are in there pipping, so hopefully we'll have a total of 11 chicks. But our goal is to raise meat birds later on, so we thought we would see what happens with broody hens, let them do all the work for us. It's a little bit more natural. I think the birds are happier, and aren't these guys so cute?
Being able to reliably hatch our own chickens and allow the chickens to do it a natural way will certainly be a huge help to us going forward here on the homestead. The next thing I wanted to do was take a look here in the top of the old garden. And while I said last week was kind of off as far as the weather is concerned, the cool weather has certainly helped several of our vegetables. So let's go have a look. Just real fast, we'll go over the Vegeta bed real fast. What we did was, we had mixed the turnips and the mustard greens when we planted them. So I went through and cut out the mustard greens. We cooked those with some smoked pork, and they were delicious. The reason for that is these are starting to go ahead and make the turnip root. So what we're hoping is we can slowly but surely thin out the mustard greens to eat, and then the turnip root will start to form. Then we'll be able to eat the turnip greens and the turnip roots. So it'll be a win-win all the way around. I did go ahead and just take the big leaves off of the mustard greens. You can see over here the size of these leaves. Some of them are just massive. So I cut out all the big ones, and I left the little hearts in them, hoping that they'll replenish themselves. And they won't have time to get big enough to sort of shade out the turnip. So if we're lucky with this cool weather, what we can do is we'll be able to eat the turnips and the turnip root and pull it out, and then directly after that, hopefully these mustard greens will sort of repopulate themselves, leaves get big, the hearts grow out, and we'll be able to have a second round of mustard greens. And you can see how this one over here is thinned out. That's going to be the goal for this one as the week progresses. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Not much has really changed on this top row. Everything is holding in really well. The basil, the pollinators, the radishes have really taken off. These will be ready in a few weeks. Those of you who follow the channel know that we try to rotate through our radishes. That way we have them all the way through up to June or July or so. And these marigolds have already started blooming, which is kind of cool. We have 2 out in the top garden that have already started to bloom. So overall, what we're hoping is these things can start early and bring pollinators in quickly to kind of stem off any sort of pressure that we have early in the year. As far as our beans are concerned, it got cool. The green beans don't really like the cool weather at all, so they're kind of not really growing much. They're not really doing much of anything, to be perfectly honest about it. We did have a couple that didn't come up, or when they came up they were snipped by something. So we went ahead and replanted into this week in a couple of these holes. I recommend doing that if you have like a grid that you plant your beans on like we do, and a few of them don't come up. Before they get too big and start shading the ground out underneath of them, you can just plug in new seeds, and whenever the weather warms up, they'll have a chance to catch up with their neighbors so they don't get shaded out. So down here, originally we had planned this to be a sweet potato bed, but we've sort of changed our mind a little bit. What we think we're going to do is, because this end of this bed here faces south with all of these trees sort of blocking the sun at different parts of the day, we're going to see if we can't grow our salad greens longer into the year. So in the greenhouse, I've got a lot of lettuces, greens, that sort of stuff started. So what we're going to do is put in some butter crunch and black seeded Simpson, radishes, onions, turnip greens, and mustard greens. And we're just going to see how long that we can grow them down here. You know, it might be one of those weird years where it doesn't get super hot until like middle of July. And if so, it would be really nice to be able to eat salads out of the garden all the way up until then. Really, it's the heat that'll make them bitter if we're not careful. The other thing that we got done this week, we went ahead and put our cucumbers in. Now, I like to start my cucumbers in the greenhouse. You do not have to. Cucumbers are one of those vegetables that do really well direct sown. The only reason I do it is because we have a finite space and I like to make sure that I have my plants spaced out correctly. Normally, I would not have put them in the ground with the temperatures being what they are, since cucurbits do not care for cool temperatures much. Out of all of them, however, cucumbers are probably the most hardy. And the real reason is that I started them thinking that it was going to be pleasant and I was going to be able to plant at the 1st of May. Well, they overgrew their small cells that I had them sprouting in, or germinating in, I'm sorry. And so instead of trying to up-pot every one of these cucumbers, I just went ahead and put them in the ground. And I'm hoping that by the time this cold spell passes, our cucumbers are still doing well. If not, it's not really that big of a deal. I can start another tray of them and they'll be up in 5 to 6 days. Since we're not planting till probably the 2nd week of May, you know, that'll give me plenty of time if I need to redo a lot of the cucumbers. But as you can see, we do have quite a few of them in the ground right now. I don't anticipate them growing much this week just because of the cool weather. But these on this end are going to be the pickling, and then on that end down there will be the slicing cucumbers. So just real quick, let's touch on the top garden. We are still eating salads twice a day. We're still giving greens and salads away on a relatively regular basis. Now, we talk about this often as far as the cadence is concerned and how we're trying to move and be a lot smoother from our spring to summer, summer to fall gardens, that sort of thing. I kind of feel like this little 2 weeks of cold weather that's going to push back planting our summer vegetables may be a bit of a blessing. The reason I say that is our cabbages have really started to take off as far as forming their heads are concerned. I'd be a little disappointed if I had to take them out next weekend. So giving them a couple more weeks to kind of swell up, that's going to be kind of fun to watch. The other thing is, with as good as our turnips are starting to form their turnip roots, I would really like to have a nice batch of turnips heading into the summer part of them. One of the things we're working on is trying to take those cool weather crops and store them a little better so that they can last, you know, anywhere from, I've been told you can keep turnips for up to 6 weeks in the right conditions. So, you know, if we could slowly eat our turnips through the course of the early summer, that'd be a lot of fun. The other thing I wanted to add in here is our beets have finally gotten big enough to where we are starting to harvest some of the side leaves to throw into our salad mix. Now, that may not sound like a big deal to a lot of you, but if you've never eaten beet greens in a tossed salad, you are missing out. It's one of my favorite spring and fall treats, and I'm really happy that it's finally here. But that's all for the top garden today. Let's go take a quick look inside the greenhouse. You can see all of the condensation here inside the greenhouse today. Again, it's really cool. But this greenhouse has really worked out well. It warms up really quickly. It also does well in these cool evenings, protecting things like our tomatoes and peppers that just do not care for cold weather at all. Having said that, I do want to mention that this upcoming Friday, I'm going to do a springtime review here of our new greenhouse and kind of go over the pros and cons of it. The mistakes that we've made, the things that we've learned, and just I haven't really done a construction and a rating of the greenhouse. So I'm going to do that this Friday, I think. Just kind of throw it out there for anyone who's considered getting one. So the next thing is, we talked about the cucumbers and growing. A lot of our squash have done that as well. Many of the squash that you see here, though, are for friends and family that asked me to grow some in addition to it. We also went ahead and started some extra deal here. We're growing a lot of these things that you see that haven't come up yet. Those are going to be the lettuces, the greens that are going to go into that back end of that middle row in the old garden that we discussed earlier. But down here you can see these are the melons and the winter squashes. They're going to be ready to go by the time a couple weeks rolls around. More than likely I'm going to have to up pot these just to make sure that the roots don't get bound up. So we also started a few extra tomato plants in these small 6-packs just because I had the extra seeds and I had a few people that were asking for them. But as of right now, it looks like everything is almost exactly where we want it to be, with 2 weeks left to put all of our plants in the ground. Well, that wraps it up for week 16. We appreciate all you folks for watching. Till next time, I hope everyone takes care of themselves. Peace.